All right.
Let me do greetings programs. Hello, hello. Manny, how are you today?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. Looks like we're both coming through on Twitch here.
Nice. Yeah, YouTube has like a 45-minute delay between when the stream
45
starts.
seconds, right?
Yeah, seconds, probably seconds. Yeah, it is a
Yep.
very long delay though. Good morning,
That is
Kevin.
still
Yeah, it's a long delay. It's like Twitch is like almost instant, right? And YouTube is
relatively once you get the affiliate. I think actually even when you're not affiliate now, they have like that no pretty low delay settings now.
yeah, it's really good on that end. It's not so good on the YouTube end, but that's okay. We adapt and overcome. We'll figure it out. Man, I love the couture this morning. You're looking yeah, very snazzy.
Yeah, I loved your poncho last time. I felt like I would like go with the flow, and this is something that I don't wear too often. Uh, with all the lake effect snow, it's never quite exactly this weather for it. It's like either I got to deal with something that like will actually break the wind, or it's just too warm altogether. So glad to find a reason to pull this out.
Nice. Yeah, it's good to be cozy. It's good to be cozy. We dig that. We dig that here. Before we get into it, Manny, because we have a lot to talk about today and the rest of the week, but let's talk about what we're drinking. You still on the Orange Pico?
No, I switched it up. This is English breakfast tea, another
Mm.
fairly common tea. It's gonna be tea for me always, guys. Don't you worry. Uh, and
Nice.
yeah. Uh, this is another one that you just have with like a little bit of milk and sugar, and it's all good to go.
You ever use honey? You ever put honey in there?
My last partner was definitely a honey person. I don't typically run a lot of honey in my tea. Like maybe some of the more green teas I'll do,
Mhm.
but yeah, with the black tea it's just sugar, milk, good to go.
Okay, cool, cool. I am on. We have a local brand down here called Just Us, and they make a Atlantic blend, which is what I'm on right now. So we're drinking Atlantic blend. It's delicious. I like it. It's a good morning coffee. Um, but I'm drinking it black. So yeah. All right, Manny, we got to talk about some stuff. We got a lot of things on the plate here, and
Hmm.
it feels like every time I see you, there's more things I want to talk about. Today is February 20th, 2024, and um, the Love is in the Air event has officially ended for this year for Warcraft. Manny, I know you've been hunting the X45 Heartbreaker for a long time. Give me some good news.
No good news on my end. There has definitely been all those tweets of people who've gotten their heartbreaker, and I am so happy for you guys. Really, I am. This smile is not as forced as it may seem to be. I'm happy for you. I will keep telling myself I'm happy for you. But no luck on my end. No luck on my end. Didn't get that. Didn't get the manuscript. I'm not a person who was chasing the Drake manuscript. And there's like an entire thing about that. My new co-host Lex Rants made one attempt just because basically she's given up on it. She's like, you know what? I'm gonna make one attempt and I'm done. And she got the manuscript in a single attempt.
She
Good
did
on
one.
her.
She did
Yes,
one. That's the way. Isn't that always the way?
one and done. Good for her.
I heard the mount was a 50% drop rate this year, that it either dropped or it didn't.
Those are the two. Those are the two possibilities. I apparently favored one far more than the other.
Gotcha, gotcha. I also did not get an X45 Heartbreaker this year, but I got to be honest with you, I do one attempt per account a week, or sorry, a day. So I did my one NA attempt, my one EU attempt. That was it, and I didn't even do it every day. There were days I forgot because I don't really care all that much. How many attempts were you doing? Like a reasonable, normal amount of attempts, or were you like no life, sweaty attempting?
Wow, there's like two extreme ends of the spectrum there, and I have no idea where people draw the marker. I would do what I consider a reasonable amount of attempts, but everybody considers what they do a reasonable amount. I did about 15 attempts a day.
Okay.
This is the the year that I would have the most attempts per day period, because we had a bunch of stuff that allowed me to level up alts to like 60 ahead of the expansion. We had the introduction of the Drakthir that showed up at 60 on any server where you had a character that's sufficiently high enough level.
Mm-hmm.
So I I had more attempts this year than I'm gonna have like probably for the foreseeable future, and definitely than I've ever had before. So man, I was really hoping it would be this year. This would be my year. Not to be. But I know people who have done like they have the cap of characters, right? And they ran it through and through and through and still no bueno. And then of course, we have the people on the other end who were like, "Oh, I didn't even know it was rare." And we have a special place for those people.
Yeah, it's the same place we have for all people because we welcome everyone here, Manny. We don't. There will be no X45 heartbreaker judgment on our end. That's too bad, sir. I hope you get it next year. Fingers crossed for you. I believe. Maybe Blizzard will put it on the traders post for us.
No, I would rather chase it. Like, oh man, that is a completely different discussion. But I'm fine with some things being nearly impossible to get. Like, there's got to be conditions for it. Like, I don't want it to be player power. I don't want some poor guy being like, "Oh, I can't ever reach the like great plays that I think I can because half the stuff is missing." Right? I don't want it to be something that happens all the time. Like, it's got to be incredibly rare. It's going to be incredibly unique, and most of the time, it shouldn't have any player power behind it.
Okay, I dig that. I actually just thought of another way I want to talk about today. I do want to talk about traders, tenders, and we sort of alluded to at the end of the stream yesterday about how putting some items on there, being able to buy some items for gold sort of tarnishes a bit of the prestige. And I think that there was a discussion forming that we could have jumped into that I'd like to talk about now. This was a hot topic 2 weeks ago. It's so hard to tell, the cycles on Twitter go so fast. Also, my lighting today is really good. You can't tell that I'm scaly at all.
No, you look beautiful.
Yeah.
I did, even yesterday you look beautiful. Today, pristine.
Nice, thank you very much. Yeah, it's the winter time, so it's scaly season.
I just use my low res camera. It all just fades into the work.
Smart, yeah. We have an elaborate skincare routine here. Yeah, but let's talk about Trader Center. So it was like 2 weeks ago. There was some data mining that found the Siege of Orgrimmar wolf mount that looked like it had traders tenders assigned to it. Obviously, Twitter had a meltdown. People saying that it wasn't right to put this item on there because it was a prestige item attached to skill that people would have had back in Siege of Orgrimmar, 15 years ago, whatever. I want to know where you fall on that, Manny. Do you think prestige items, and maybe this is a separate question, but do you think prestige items or old AOTC mounts specifically belong on the trader's post?
Yeah, no, I don't think so. I think that but I'm for different reasons than most.
Okay.
But I believe that when those mounts were offered, they were limited time. They said you get it now. Yes, it is the FOMO, and people were like, I hate FOMO, and that is a separate discussion. But when Blizzard said something, it's fine for them to later on be like, hey, we got to reconsider it. But I don't think it's something that they should do lightly. And I don't think it's something that they should do consistently, because then what is even the reason behind listening to anything that they would say? Because at any point, you pray that they don't renegotiate the deal further, right?
You're now my favorite person to talk to.
So I think with a lot of these things, it's about the chase. The mount, the whatever prestige item, it's about what you did to get through it. And I know that there is like sometimes people who circumvent it through some reason or another. They pay their gold and they get their carry, but that's not the vast majority of the people. the vast majority of people went into a raid, right? And they did it with like, I love all of these raids that come out and they have like Friendship Burb and Friendship Dragon and Friendship Moose. Those are awesome. And like, that's not like the prestige of like, oh, I'm like the top end raider and look at my mythic only mount that I got when it was a thing. That's people being like, yeah, my guild got together and made sure we ran it the next like 6 weeks to get everybody in the guild their mount. And that is like the signifier that like my guild, they came together for this purpose. And that's something that I think should be respected, even if you ignore all the people who are quote unquote tryhards about it.
Right.
And then to have that show up, like some indeterminate time in the future and be like, okay, here you go. Then we start running to a question of like, why did you bother getting in the first place? Don't you feel cheated that you spent all that like money to get the token to then get something that then shows up for like a half hour's work on the trader's post 3 months later? Like there is something involved in what you did to get that, and I think that should be respected.
Okay. So, okay. I see your point, sir. I would like to offer a few counterpoints.
All right.
First off, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I think that the people who buy AOTC is probably about 50-50 to the people who actually earn it. We as a small guild have 5 buyers a week for AOTC every week. And there are guilds that run 3 runs a week or 3 runs a day, 4 or 5 times a week that are full for buyers. So I think the people who are buying AOTC is a lot higher of a number, but I don't have those stats in front of me. And I also have no problem with that. You're paying for my repair bills. Please continue to buy OTCs with gold. with gold. And I mean, even CE, people do with CE as well. And Gladiator and all that stuff. That boosting for gold has existed for forever. As long as the game has existed, that has existed.
Oh yeah.
So and there are people who have actively boosted and promoted their boosting in some of these avenues who were the most vocal about saying, oh, the prestige to this item is gone now. Well, you yourself are contributing to the removal of the prestige by carrying people for gold. So I think that's my biggest issue, is that a lot of the loudest voices were people who have actively worked to degrade the value of that prestige item. But my question to you is, so you mentioned, it's something you worked. So let's say I'm an individual who has worked hard. I've joined a guild. I've worked hard. I've gotten this mount. Or I've PvP, whatever it is. I've put the effort in, and I've done it, and I feel like I've accomplished this, and it's great, and it's mine now, and I've done all that work. How is a version of it appearing on the traders post, a year, 5, 10 years later, any different from a re-release of comics? Right? It's the same. So if I bought Spider-Man #1 and I own Spider-Man #1, I paid $13,000 for it, and then Marvel re-releases Spider-Man #1, and then they put that little barcode on it or whatever that signifies that it's a re-release. I'm not upset that other people are now buying this thing that I spent all this money on this prestige item that I owned. I'm just happy that more people are able to read it, right?
Okay, so there's 2 differentiators there.
Okay.
Keeping with your like analog, right? When Marvel does a re-release, they mark it as a re-release. It's like if they put out the mount, but they did a different tint of it, then your original tint is still signified as like, hey, I put in the work. Okay. And would you be okay with that?
Yeah, I don't care if they retint it. Right. And to be honest, I use one mount forever, so it.
But yeah. At this point, I've collected like near 900 mounts. Any one mount is probably like so lost in there. Like right. I have a story attached to it, and even if they release an exact same mount, I'm still gonna have that story attached to it. So like, is the importance that mount, or is the importance that story? I don't think that's like a fight that I can say like my view is correct and nobody else's view is. So like that's just like the greater good at that point. Should these mounts be re-released in a way that allows a lot of people who weren't around, who maybe weren't even playing at that time. And so like being on the opposite end of it, there is like the black scarabs, because they had all the different colors of scarabs, and the black one was like, oh, you only got this if you were there at the time and such and such, and I will never get that unless I roll like on a classic server and stuff, and then that's never going to transfer back into my main account. So the question becomes like, oh, if I'm on the other side, would I be okay with that? And the question, and so I'm gonna say on the inverse, it's like, what does it matter for me if I never get that mount, right? Like I've got 900 other mounts. What does it matter when I get that mount? It's just gonna get thrown into the thing. So like, if it matters so much to you, am I being hurt by not having it? And so you got to balance those, right?
That's a good point. It's almost like there are multiple sides to this discussion and no one right answer.
You got a point there. Sometimes it's the nuance.
Yeah, I like that. What a very reasonable result we've come to.
I will say though that if they wanted to re-release it, I'm not against them re-releasing these mounts. I'm against them putting out these mounts in a way that is not like aligned with the way it was originally released. So we have this wonderful thing called time walking raids, right? And if they were to say like, hey, during this window when the time walking raid is up, if you want to run through it, it's got like a relatively high chance of dropping that mount, right? I would be totally fine with that. I'd be like, oh yeah, you guys clear through the raid. It's time walking. They scale you down. Yes, time walking's a lot different balance because of like how we've grown as characters and how they tuned it and stuff. But I think that's so close that I'm not going to care. Go for it, right?
Yeah.
And I think if people can have that kind of view, then it's I think it's the extremes that are screwing up this conversation.
No, I agree. And I actually really like the time walking idea because I can also sell carries to those.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's time. I'm down for that. Time walking. Give me those mounts on time walking. But like you said, they're for the majority of us, they're going to sit in a bag. We're never going to use them again. So maybe let's not get as upset as we sometimes tend to do online. Everything in moderation, including moderation.
Yeah, but like imagine fitting this discussion into 280 characters or less. I think you would lose a lot of the nuance in it.
Yeah. It would just be Manny's bad. Mount's good.
Mount's good. Manny bad. I looked through your Raider IO and you haven't beat this boss. Your opinion means nothing.
That's right. I see you didn't kill this boss from 7 tiers ago. Yeah. I love it. Manny, there was something else that came to me, and it's a conversation I've seen you sort of like probing into on Twitter with some individuals. There's an item this tier that is a very hot item, that is a very rare item that is tough to find. The legendary axe Firalath the Dreamrender. And I've seen you on Twitter with everybody every week tweets out, I didn't get it this week. This is stupid. I hate this. The bad luck protection doesn't exist, blah, blah, blah. All these things, all these very reasonable, rational tweets that they make. Full disclosure, I got the axe like 4 weeks ago. But every now and then I see you pop into somebody's replies and be like, do you think that this should be guaranteed? Do you think that this should be, what are you trying to do, sir?
I am honestly trying to get people to like just own their position. There are so many people who are like, I've been at this for 6 weeks and it hasn't dropped for me. This is garbage. And it's like the implied part of that is that you feel that you're entitled to it now, right? And they don't want to say that because then it's like, oh, the entitled word. And you can feel entitled to stuff. I paid my $15 a month. I should be able to play World of Warcraft. Not all the time. They should be able to bring it down for maintenance or whatever, but I should be able to get some level of play, right? So there's an entitlement for me. I should be able to play the game. I pay my money, right? Am I entitled to everything in the game? That's a question. If I put in the time, if I put myself to a point where I should be eligible to it, am I entitled to it? Right? And that's where I start pushing back against people. In my opinion, legendaries should never be guaranteed. I don't care about the bad luck protection. That bad luck protection should never give you more than like 25% chance at best. more times than not, overwhelmingly, you shouldn't get a legendary in the tier it shows up. You should see it around. There should be enough that like you're like, oh man, I do still want to chase it, but I don't want every Death Knight, Paladin, and two-handed Strength wearer to be running around with their left. That's not a legendary to me. I already have a separate discussion about like why current legendaries aren't legendary, right? And maybe they want to rename this thing to not a legendary, just like a lower super duper rare drop chance. But
that's a pretty hefty name there. I don't know that they're gonna go with super duper
yeah,
rare.
super duper rare. But we'll just call them like mythical weapons that are so like legendaries are separate thing. But I think people got confused with artifact weapons, thinking that like, hey, I showed up this expansion, so give it to me. That's not how legendaries work. And I genuinely want to have conversations with people about when they feel that they should have gotten it already, right? If they feel that that legendary should be given to anybody who's eligible, and I have spoken with those players. It's not just being the conversations on Twitter. There's been conversations in Discords and such, and there are players who say like at a certain point, like I've been raiding for this long, I've made this many attempts, like give me the legendary. There are certain players who are like all these mats to put together this legendary. It should be way more powerful, and I should have it by now. And so the question, and like obviously, that's not every player, right? But there is this growing trend, and it's not just with legendaries, it's also with like a lot of player power, where if I don't have it, I am less than I should be, and Blizzard is stealing power that I should have. It's not that they're giving you extra power, they're holding you back from where you should be, right? I don't want to review the logs of everybody, but I think there's other things you could do to improve your power.
No, I'm playing perfectly, and I need the legendary. Oh, I have it. The healers are bad. Is there any concern at all that Blizzard may have tuned the two-handed strength users, expecting them to have the legendary, and therefore not having it is actively putting them behind other non-two-handed strength wearing DPS classes? Because if you look at the DPS charts early on, the lower half was all the two-handed strength users. So it did seem, the impression was there that Blizzard was saying, we're expecting you to have a legendary to put you on par with the rogues and the shamans and the boomkin.
I'm gonna say anecdotal data.
Yeah, for sure.
Right? Like,
yeah, 100%.
Yeah, for sure. Like, and there is a question of ideals. Like, if the drop should happen, should they balance around it? And I guess so. Like, if you're pretty much guaranteed to have it, then yeah, that's part of your balancing. If there's a very low chance that you get it, then yeah, no, it shouldn't be balanced that way. And they've done adjustments since. Like, I don't think that they said, oh, Hunters, you're not getting a legendary this tier, so week 1 you're going to be absolutely busted. That was clearly a bug. That was clearly something they addressed, right? Last tier with Evokers even after they got their legendary weren't like top of the charts. And I felt that they were fine. And I don't believe that they should be balanced around getting their legendaries, because I don't believe that the vast majority of them should get their legendary. Right? But if I'm looking at a legendary, I expect it to be something like, let's say, 8 to 12% of your output, right? And that's a huge margin in terms of balancing in damage, right? And where do you put that? Do you put them like, hey, without the legendary, you're roughly squarely in the middle, and with the legendary, you're now topping the charts every single fight? Like, balancing is a hard nightmare.
Yeah, that's a good point. That is an excellent point. You're nailing it, sir. I make a lot of openly wrong statements here about statistics, and no one has ever called me on it before, and I'm a little taken aback at how quick you were to say anecdotal data. All of my data is anecdotal.
I guess I've been on Twitter too long debating.
Yeah, that was it was like I felt like I was a cat and you squirted me with a spray bottle. I was like, oh man, he's right. I did just completely make that up.
Your data set's too small. I'm going to ignore that and tell you about the ideals.
I love it. All right, so I think I'm with you. Like, I don't think legendary should be guaranteed. And again, speaking as somebody who has one and on a team where I am the only active DPS that has one, none of our other DPS have gotten it. And they're all far better than me. Even with the legendary, they outperform me. They're incredible players. But I see how frustrating it is for them not to get it. Our evoker, we have a preservation evoker on our team who didn't get the evoker legendary until the final week of the raid tier. And then he never bothered to do the quest because he was like, what is the point? And it was sort of frustrating for him, but it became a bit of a meme in the guild. Yeah, I don't think legendary should be guaranteed. Shadowmourne wasn't a guarantee. The Warblades of Azeroth weren't a guarantee. I think that stuff needs to be rare. And I do like the idea that somebody, I don't think it will happen because of the nature of the game now, but it would be great if it was an item that was so rare and so powerful that having it automatically made you the top damage dealer on your team. But then there was only like max, you're only expecting to have 1 to 2 per team, but then people would find ways to cheese that, I think.
Well, do you want to know why they kind of backed off that model and Blizzard had sort of addressed this?
Oh, I would love to know.
Yeah.
Is this actual data or anecdotal data, though?
This is the word of Blizzard. Okay. So I'm appealing to authority here. But people know this from their own experience. But like, what would happen is that they would have legendaries, and of course, back in the day, legendaries often were valid beyond the tier that they were introduced. Mm-hmm. And you would get a legendary, and then the person who got the legendary would get scooped up by another guild. Right? And this was a pattern among like not just like the top guilds, but a lot of people would get that legendary and allow them to like move into a guild that might have otherwise rejected them. Mm-hmm. And so Blizzard was kind of conscious of that. That's where we started getting like the People's Legendary, where we got the Mist of Pandaria cloaks, the like welfare rings, where we got WAD. Everybody gets the ring. When they tried to bring back legendaries.
The Wish.com legendaries.
The Wish.com legendaries, yeah. But those had something that modern day legendaries don't have, and I'll talk about that in a second. Then when we got back into Legion, they're like, okay, we want to have legendaries, but we want people to be excited for it. And that's when we got the loot box legendaries of Legion. So everybody got their legendary. Legendaries became required. If you got the wrong legendary, everybody was upset about it. RNG ruled all. Complain on the forums. Everybody loves Legion in retrospect, but man, did they hate it at the time. And yeah, that turned people off of legendaries. When legendaries became so fruitful that everybody got it, people are like, no more legendaries. And we seem to have forgotten it, and now we're going back to I need legendaries all the time again.
Right.
Come on, players, make up your mind.
Rose-tinted glasses, man. It's amazing what a little bit of time and memory loss will do for you. Manny, we are running up against the end here. Just before we end today, well, obviously we're back tomorrow, folks. Lots more to talk about. Anytime you speak with Manny, it's like just opening up a book of topics, and there's so many choices. But you recorded your live episode of Faz last night for Azeroth podcast, made the great return. How did it go?
Oh man, it was really great sitting down with Lex. She's been a guest host a bunch of times, but now she's sitting into the permanent co-host position, and it's great to have that flow. Talked about a bunch of things. Like you said, it's so hard to like stop when we mean to stop. Right. But we got the show in roughly an hour, if you don't count the pre-interview that we split off.
Nice. I like that. Yeah, roughly an hour is good. Those are numbers. Excellent. We are going to stop today, folks, because I do have an appointment in 2 minutes that I can't miss. But we will be back tomorrow for more Recruiter Cup, 9 a.m. to 9:30 a.m. Eastern on YouTube, on the Recruiter Friend YouTube channel, or live on Manny's Twitch channel, True Villain Manny, for this week. Manny, thanks so much, man. This has been a lot of fun.
Thank you. See you tomorrow.